warm welcome to today's episode of Authentic Achievements, where it's my absolute privilege to be joined by the fabulous Dima Ghawi. Dima, welcome.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to this. And I know from our pre-chat, we could probably get stuck in really quickly. But before we do, let me share a little bit more about you with our audience. So for those listening and watching today, Dima is Middle Eastern in her genes, an American in her heart, and a global citizen in her spirit. She ignites the untapped potential in leaders across the globe, empowering them to shatter limitations and become courageous, purpose-driven leaders. Her own journey is one of escaping confinement, crossing continents, and transforming her life's purpose. Harnessing the power of her story, Dima is committed to inspiring individuals to attain personal and professional growth. Dima's life mission is to give voice to those that are excluded within corporate cultures and their communities. And through her personal and professional experiences, she inspires, educates, and empowers everyone who crosses her path. I mean, wow, what a journey. I don't even know where to start. I love, though, that actually you've kind of pulled together the kind of body, heart, and soul, which I think is kind of the essence of all of us. And yet very often we don't look at all three of those. But I mean, what an amazing journey you've had, Dima. Could you bring it to life a little bit for us?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Turkey, raised in Jordan. And early in my life, I was playing with my grandmother in her kitchen, and we were arranging flowers in a glass vase. She held this glass vase and she said, "Do you see this perfect glass vase? A girl is just like it. If it gets cracked for any reason, you can never fix it. You can never glue it back. No one would want it. And that's the one we throw in the trash." So this is where my journey started. What she really meant at that time was that I have to be perfect. I have to follow, obey. I have to worry about how I am being perceived by others. I have to please others. Otherwise, I would be rejected. And it's interesting for me how these messages that are very, very toxic were implanted early on intentionally in my life to prepare me for the journey that's about to start. So that's where it started. But now when I look at myself, I am influencing people all around the world, working with CEOs and helping them create healthy and inclusive work cultures. So there's a lot of things that happened in between, because with every journey, with every pain, with every person that shows up, they're teaching us something. And the more we're learning, the more we're influencing others as well, and hopefully teaching them with our journey.
Oh, wow. So resonant, so many of those things. You know, I think whilst not the glass bowl piece, very much I was told to be perfect, and perfect was the only thing that was going to be acceptable. And I mean, we're perfectly imperfect. It's like we aren't perfect.
I don't think the worst part is the expectation of perfection. I think the worst part is the consequences if we are not perfect.
Sorry,
it's okay. we can
income put in.
Here we go. You see, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is great.
He joined in perfectly to let us know that perfection is not always what we get.
And with the toy too.
Yeah, well, this is what he's bought for you, Dima. I mean, this is high praise from Pudding if he brings you his toy.
Oh wow, I'm so lucky. That's great. It likes what we're talking about.
That's it.
It's so meant. It's just a matter of reminding us that it's not just that the issue is that we're expected to be perfect. Really, it's the issue is the consequences that we have to deal with if we're not following that expectation. And as a result, we continue to try to be somebody who we're not, and try to lose a big part of ourselves, but we're showing to the world an example that is just so negative.
Yeah, that so resonates. Like, particularly, you know, I think we both had similar as in lives in corporate life. And I spent so much of mine desperately trying to fit in, you know, to look like I believed I should look. And until I got to the point where I was like, it's just too hard to do the big job and also spend all my time trying to be something I'm not.
Yeah.
But how do you help people to embrace themselves so that actually they can start showing up as who they are?
And I was not prepared for that question, because the image that came to my mind, and that's when you're talking about the authentic self. I remember when I resigned from the corporate world, I looked at my closet, and all I could see was black suits, and maybe if they're not black, they were navy.
You were going to say that. I've said that exact same thing before on a couple of podcasts, which was I'd throw navy in for a bit, for a bit of color.
Yeah. And I realized, because I was working in a male-dominated environment, I was trying to look, act, sound, be like everybody else around me. It's not easy being the only woman in the room, but if I look like everyone else, like if I sound like everybody else, if I am maybe a little aggressive just like everyone else, maybe I would fit in. And that's the moment when I looked at that closet. It was the moment I realized that for the first time ever, like, wow, I didn't even see it before. So I promised myself two things. One, no more suits. And the other, no more black and navy. It has to have color. So we just need these moments where we're starting maybe something new, or we're reflecting about how we've been doing things in the past. And many times we just don't get to these moments.
It's so true, because and I think, as you were saying earlier so eloquently, it's about the fact that we're so busy running towards something that we forget to take pause of where we are and be intentional and do that reflection. What went well today, what didn't go so well today, what brings me joy. That's one of the questions I ask myself and my little girl all of the time. Is what we're doing bringing us joy? Because if in every day there isn't a moment of joy, then we're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah.
There should be joy, shouldn't they? And we should understand for ourselves what are the things that bring joy to us, because they could be very different from the things that bring joy to somebody else.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I agree.
So I mean, you've got so much experience, and obviously 20 odd years in Fortune 100 companies. I can't begin to imagine how much you've learned in those, having done very similar over here in the UK. But what is one way you'd suggest that they can create a healthy, more inclusive work culture? Because that seems to be one of the challenges is how people do establish a good culture.
Yeah. A lot of organizations, they talk about that they value inclusion and they want to create it. My recommendation is that they have to truly, truly want to create that inclusive work culture. It's not just talking about it, because it comes with the need for them to adapt as executive team, the need for them to listen to what their team members are asking for, and maybe even to do things very different than the way they were before. So in order to create an inclusive culture, it is that for the executive team to pause and to truly ask themselves, are we just saying it because it's the right thing to say and it's just going to sound so wonderful? Or do we truly want this inclusive work culture, and what are we ready to do and change and adapt to in order to create it? It's just really the desire. When we want something, we make it happen. Because when I think about creating an inclusive work culture, it's really not that difficult. We make it so complicated. It is truly making people come to work feeling respected, feeling valued, doing a job that they're passionate about, that there's alignment with what they're working on and what the vision of the organization is. It is really not hard, but are we having the executive team on board, listening, observing, and having the right intention to do it? So now I have a friend that I've been talking to the last week and helping him with his resume and helping him find a job. He has been working for a company for 27 years. He is so dedicated for the company. And now, like, when was the last time you heard somebody work for a company for 27 years? The company, they're doing so well with their stock price. They are over exceeding the expectations of the market. But just recently, they required everybody that they have to go to the office. This person has been working from home full time since 2004.
Wow.
And now he's required to go to the office, which is 2 hours away, which means he's either going to commute 4 hours a day, or he would need to sell his home, go buy another home, and also leave his parents that are in their 80s and be able to, in order to keep his job. So when we talk about a healthy work culture, do you think that these executives really thought about it? Is the intention to create a healthy work culture? Because to them, they feel that this is going to create more engagement. This is going to create more like visibility for people, but all of his team is global. He's not going to be seeing anybody. So it is the intention. Obviously, their intention is not to create a healthy work culture, even though they talk about it, because they're making the life of their employees so much more miserable. And now this person who was ready to retire from this company is looking for a job after 27 years.
Wow. I mean, it really strikes home, doesn't it? The difference between impact and intent. Because I think sometimes we have an intention, but if we don't think about the impact and the consequences of what we're doing, then the impact can be very, very different to the intention we set at the start, can't it?
Yeah.
I always find that way if you're giving anybody constructive feedback, I always start with the fact that their intention probably wasn't to get it wrong. Their intention, nobody, I don't think, gets up and goes, I want to have to be really rubbish today, to really suck at what I do.
Yeah.
So if we assume that they're intending to get it right, therefore actually all we now need to work through is the impact of what they didn't align with what they were looking to do. But what struck me as really fascinating in what you're sharing is you're right. It's not too difficult. It is about making sure people feel heard, feel valued, feel respected, feel included. I think one of the things, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. One of the things that I see with the organisations that I work with is the largest part of the challenge that they face in their culture is they've not given their people permission to be part of the solution. And so people aren't coming and sharing their voice and sharing what's happening, like your friend. I mean, 27 years, and then all of a sudden, such a significant impact, on not just him and his role, but his family and friends and whole way of life.
Yeah.
That probably wasn't even considered because it wasn't known. And I think that's one of the challenges, isn't it? When you're driving these big companies and you're trying to affect change, you can't possibly know what's going on in every person's life. But that's why you've got a management infrastructure, so that those people should know what's going on in their people's lives to be able to filter that back in, so that you're better able to make calls that aren't so negatively impactful. I mean, I can't begin to imagine what your friend must be feeling after pretty much dedicating his life to that organization.
Yes. And everything you're talking about at the bottom line is showing care for our employees and building trust. So the employees are not going to trust us if they realize that we're not investing the time and having the right intention to create this inclusive culture. I love what you said about listen to the employees. And whenever I start with any of my clients working with the executive team, the first thing I help them do is a survey, which is mainly to listen, getting feedback about do the employees feel included? Do they feel that their leadership team care about them? And many organizations, they think everything is fine, we're good, we get good feedback, like from their employees, until I do the survey. And one time, and the HR manager, after a presentation I gave with the results, she came to me and she said, "You just told them their baby is ugly," because because many of these organizations, they're not truly listening, as if they need an external person to come to their team and truly listen and to translate the messages back to them. But to listen, and as I mentioned earlier, to have a genuine interest in creating this inclusive work culture.
I love that. And the part for me that really sings home is that to really listen. I remember many years ago going into an organisation that just had its survey results back from its people, and on the survey results it said that the people didn't think the leadership team lived the guiding principles. And so obviously we needed to come up with an action plan. So the leadership team came back and they went, "It's okay, Kim, we've got this. Like, what we're going to do is we're going to put posters up on the walls, let people know what the guiding principles are. And then we're going to suggest that they nominate each other when they're living the guiding principles." And I was like, okay, I'm not sure that demonstrates we're listening to them. And they said, why? And I said, well, they didn't say they don't know what they are. And they didn't say they don't think they live them. They said they don't think we live them. That's very different. So if we suddenly put them up on the wall and we get them to nominate each other, it isn't going to change their belief that we don't live them. I said, so, yeah, and this, what would you do? I said, well, I think we need to get them, go and talk to the people and say, can you tell us what we're doing or saying or being that makes you feel that we don't live the guiding principles? Because that's the thing we need to change. And they were like, "Oh, I've not thought of that." I was like, "That's probably what we're living them, to be fair." Because surely you'd go and do that. Surely you'd go and ask them. It's like, if you don't understand, as if you haven't got enough information to be able to affect the change, because we don't know what it is we're doing, saying, or being that means that they believe we're not living them. The only way you're going to get the information is to go and ask.
Yeah.
But ask with a view of wanting to really listen.
Yeah.
To understand. And I think that seems to be coming through. Like, what you're doing for clients is you're asking that question with a real listening to understand, and therefore you are playing it back. And as sometimes it is that piece where you go, "I'm sorry, the baby is ugly."
Yeah, and they need to hear it, as if they need to hire somebody, a consultant from the outside, to be open to even listening to it. Yeah.
And I think, but I'd love to know your thoughts, actually. My initial thought on that is that that's probably because the people have felt so unlistened to with the internal people for so long that the only way that they're going to trust that they will be listened to is if it is done by somebody new. How do you feel about that?
That what you just said is very accurate. And also the trust that the survey may not be anonymous. So if it's done internally, they're scared of retaliation. They're scared that the HR will be able to track who said what. And when it's coming from an external person, that they tend to trust more. I'm not saying trust 100%, but they feel safer to share this information. But also it's up to us, people like you and I, to create the sense of safety early on, where it is anonymous. My role here is to drive a positive change, not to just to come do a survey and leave. So it's a lot of things that need to come into it. But the thing is, it's not a matter of just collecting the survey results and moving on. It is the executive team open to adapting? Are they open to changing because of this feedback? Because if they're not, the employees were generous enough to take the time to complete it this time, but next time they're not, because they're going to be, this is such a waste of time. And why would I give my opinion if no action is being taken? I have some clients that are so amazing to a point that they share the survey results with all the analysis with their team. And they
Yeah.
commit and they say, we're not going to be changing everything, or we're not going to be doing every single thing you asked for, but let us tell you what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do for the next year based on what you asked for. This is what we're going to do for the next 2 to 3 years or beyond that. They bring the team on the journey and help them realize that they're heard, that there's going to be a change that's going to be done based on the feedback, and that they care. And of course, not as a result, the employees would feel, wow, my voice is valued, and they would want to stay.
I love that. Yeah, I remember in lots of organisations when I used to go in and do transformational change, and the first thing that I would do is go meet people where they were. And people were like, why do you do that? I said, because my one question I used to ask every employee I've ever met was, can I ask you, what's the daftest thing, what's the silliest thing we make you do every day? And they'd like look, and I'd say, go on, just out of interest, let me know what it is. And that would be how you affected the greatest change in the organisation, because we'd be doing these things that they thought we knew they were doing. And actually, once they told me, like, that really is silly, we don't need to do that anymore. Because it would be hearsay. It would be, I remember in one organisation, they, and I asked them that question. They said, well, when we dial a customer, if the customer doesn't answer us, we have to do nothing, and sit for 5 minutes and then dial them back. And I went, okay, can I just ask, was the phone engaged? No. So you dial out, you get a ringtone, and you sit and wait for 5 minutes and you dial again. And they went, yeah. And that's how we have to do it. And I was like, but that doesn't make any sense, because if they were screening their calls before, they'll be screening their calls in 5 minutes. And if they weren't there before, the likelihood is they still won't be there in 5 minutes. It's not enough time to be able to affect change. And they were like, well, the owner of the business wants us to do it this way. And I was like, I absolutely guarantee he has no idea that that's what you're doing. And I also guarantee that he'll go epileptic if he ever found out. So I would, let's try something new. Why don't we try? We'll call them, and if they don't answer, we'll move on to the next number, and we'll see how that works for us. But it did. It made unsurprisingly, Dima, it made an immense difference, and we got significantly more sales because we were doing significantly more actual talking to customers as opposed to sitting looking at our screens. But I guess my reason for sharing it was just how something so silly can become a fact. It can become a thing that drives us, and because as an organization they weren't willing to go and listen to their people or ask them any questions or meet them where they were, they actually were wasting all of that amazing resource, and also making the people that work for them think that they were a little bit doolally. It's like, why would anyone do this?
But it's always been done that way, right? Why change? Wow, what a great story. I never ever thought I will hear a story like this.
Yes. Yeah, it was one of those. Yeah, I remember for many years, because I did used to go and do a lot of interim and fractional work, and I remember saying at one point when I retire, I'm going to write a book about some of the things that you find when you go in to so many organizations globally, and no matter how big or how outwardly successful they are, there'll always be something somewhere where you're like, anybody looked over there? It's like that over there. Probably need to look at because there'll be something odd in there. And I think we see problems in organizations turn up in the numbers. So they'll appear somewhere in the financials, and that will tell us that we've got a problem. But they always manifest in the people. They're always as a result of something not going right somewhere, usually because somebody hasn't got clarity on exactly what they're supposed to do, or hasn't got permission to be part of that part of that solution, or doesn't feel that they've, that they can have a voice. And I'd love your thoughts on, like, how can we, as an organization, how can we help our people to be heard?
Yeah. Wow. You have such fun stories. And by the way, I agree. You need to write a book about all of this because it's pretty interesting. So to help people be heard is, as a consultant, first I encourage for them to do the surveys. I encourage focus group discussions, which mainly is small groups that they meet with the like one of the executive team members, and to share, to create a safe space for them to share what their thoughts and what can be done better, and what would make them happier as a team. But also reverse mentoring. Many times when we hear of mentoring, we're hearing about somebody senior mentoring somebody junior and telling them how to build their career. But it is the reverse mentoring, where somebody who is senior listening to somebody who's junior. And that doesn't mean just with age. To listen to them and to ask them, how can we be better? What do we need to do as an organization to create this healthier work environment, to create the sense of belonging? People will talk when the safe environment is being created. And so it's not that the problem that they're not talking. They are talking, whether it is gossip, whether it is complaining or talking in their head. But how can we create this safe space and environment for them to truly share their thoughts and their ideas in a healthy way that it's going to create a positive impact for the organization? So it is surveys, it is having conversation, it is the reverse mentoring, but people need to see the results. And the more they see an impact and they see that they're being heard and their ideas are being implemented, or the status of that, they're going to contribute more. And that's the challenge. It's either we're just so busy, we don't have time to talk to our team members, or if we do, we end up using that information against them, or just collecting the information and moving on.
I love that. So it really is about, like, obviously listening, but the piece that comes throughout all that you've shared with us is making sure that we're creating that safe space for people to be able to share, and then making sure we do something with it. Making sure we take action, demonstrable action, so people can, people can see the impact of what did they get back as a result of taking that leap of faith by sharing with us? Because that it is a leap of faith for our people, isn't it, to share something that's not going so well for us, or not, and yet we know that, as you said so eloquently, they are talking. They might not be talking to us, but they are talking either in their head, to each other, to their family, and as we know, I think I think the survey says 57% of people leave their boss, not the company. So if we're getting these things wrong, well, you don't find out until they've left us, and at that point, it's too late, isn't it?
Yes. And then we wonder, why are people leaving? Why, especially with the younger generation? Oh, they're just so not reliable. No, maybe we need to look inward and drive different, like lead differently. So yeah, it's easy to look at others and just blame them for leaving. And also, like, I love the idea of and I hear a lot of people doing it related to the stay interview, like with the exit interview when they're leaving. The stay interview is the manager and the executive team asking the employees, how are things going? How can we be better? How can we challenge you more? How can we help with your growth? What can we do as an organization to create this healthy work environment? And mainly we're asking them what would make them stay. And of course, everybody wants more money. I get it. But at the same time, many individuals, that is not the only thing that motivates them. They want to wake up on Monday morning and be happy to go to work. And also go to bed on Sunday night knowing that Monday morning is going to be a good day instead of dreading it. Think about people in your life and how do they feel on Monday mornings?
Yeah.
Like even the memes on social media is so funny how they have how the cartoons are just dreading going to work on Monday, but they're just so happy to go to leave work on Friday. That is just, that by itself tells me it's a toxic environment. And I've been in these environments.
Yeah,
I've been in places where Sunday afternoon, that's when I start getting in a bad mood. Monday morning, I'm crying on my way to work because I didn't want that. I just didn't like the culture. I didn't fit in that culture until I get to a point where I quit my job. But how many people experience that? And also, how many people cannot afford to quit their jobs because they need the salary and they
yeah,
continue week after week going to work, feeling unhappy, unmotivated, doing the least that they can just to maintain this job and the income. How can we get the most out of them? We can't.
yeah. It's so true. And I think we've all, well, I've certainly been in a place where it wasn't a job I enjoyed, and it was one that more than one, where it was about you need to, we've got bills to pay, we've got but actually, we also need to feel fulfilled, don't we, and feel valued. And I think for me, the ones where I felt were the most toxic were the ones where it almost felt like no matter what you did, it wasn't good enough. There was always an expectation of more. And I think we can sometimes think, well, actually, if we ask people what they want to stay, it's always going to be money. And it very, very rarely is. It's usually something else that is in our gift that we can do. If we really ask them. And I love the thought of a stay interview. I know one organisation we implemented, and it went really well, actually. The net promoter score that we do with customers to find out what they think. We introduced a net promoter score around your leader to find out how likely you would be to recommend place to work and recommend your leader as a person to lead. And it was really fascinating. It really affected positive change because we were able to really understand, like, it doesn't matter what you think, this is the reality. You're struggling to recruit, and that's because nobody in your organization would recommend you to their family or friends.
That's so creative. I love it. Wow.
Yeah, honestly, it really did work. So you go into these organizations, and some of them have got massive referral bonuses. So if you refer somebody who comes into work for us and they're successful, some of them they can be hundreds of pounds or even more, and you're like, but no one's referring anybody. If that is not an indicator that your culture's got a problem, I don't know what is. If you're giving them a massive opportunity to earn a big chunk of money, and all they've got to do is say, I would want my friends or my family to work here, and they don't. It's like, hello. that might be a time to kind of come and chat. I could literally chat to you all day, Dima, but I'm conscious that we are fast running out of time. But there's still so much I'd love to hear. I mean, you've learned so much, and you've been able to affect change globally for so many cultures, and you've shared such great insight with us already. But if you had to go back and ask and give your younger self some advice, what would it be?
I would tell my young self, have fun, be playful, don't be serious all the time, and enjoy life. It's so important to be successful. It's important to continue to grow, whether in the corporate world or us as entrepreneurs. And at the same time, it's easy to forget to enjoy life, to enjoy being human, enjoy being playful. So that's what I would tell my young self. Don't take life too seriously. Just be more playful.
Oh, I love that. What great advice, because I can't remember who said it, like, none of us getting out of here alive, so we shouldn't take quite so seriously. And I forget whose quote it is, but it reminds me of that. We do take everything so very seriously. And yes, we have to take some things seriously, but we can have fun at the same time as being serious. I think sometimes what we miss is we almost allot time. It's like, I'll be serious now, and then I'll be funny here, and then I'm going to be serious again over there. And actually, we can align both of them together, can't we? And bring all of that in. So, Dima, how can people get in touch with you, and who do you help?
Yes. So they can get in touch with me on my website. It is my name, dimaghawi.com. And it has they can connect on the contact page. They can see information about what I offer. The companies that I offer so I mainly work with companies to help them create a healthy work culture and to create a more inclusive work environment. That is the company part, but I also work with individuals on their journey of self-discovery to help them figure out how they can be better leaders, how can they continue to advance, but at the same time, maybe they're totally stuck, maybe they're in their midlife crisis. I believe we go through midlife crisis every 10 years. So, and they're just trying to have better understanding of what is next for them. I work with them to bring light into their lives and more awareness.
Amazing. I love that. And I really, really enjoyed chatting with you today. Thank you so very much for sharing your insight and your journey with us.
My pleasure.
And to everybody listening and watching, I hope you found today's episode to be as informative, inspiring, and fun as I have. And until next time, take care.